All right, it is the 23rd day of the 6th month of the 23rd year after the latest millennium. This is KUTV Primetime News. We're here to inform you on what's happening in the country and beyond. But first, the highlights. And Daniel Were shines in the men's 400-meter at Nyayo Stadium after several failed attempts in the past. As you can tell, as far as your screen is concerned, I'm not alone. I have Evelyn Langat, who is our sign language interpreter tonight. Welcome to the broadcast. Now, Deputy President Gachagua is the latest to call for media accountability. The Deputy President, who was presiding over a graduation ceremony at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, better known as JKUAT, said that this is a time for the media to be held to account after criticizing the political class for long. Project saying it will create jobs in the country.
The Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has yet again told off the media, saying it is time for it to be held to account after enjoying the freedom to criticize the political class for a long time.
I agree, no condition is permanent. No, for a long time. Our friends in the media who are used to criticizing us and nobody used to question them. Now things have changed because no situation is permanent. Along the way, they have criticized the political class for so many years. And we took the criticism in stride. And we agreed that they hold us to account. They criticize us. But things have changed also. Now we are also saying somebody needs to hold the media to account.
This comes a few days after the Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria condemned one of the media houses for being biased in writing and reporting of this news.
Na nimaliza nyinyi watu wa media kusema Nation Media muamue kama nyinyi ni gazeti ama broadcasting house ama media house ama ni chama cha upinzani. Na mimi nimesema kutoka leo hata sio kesho, idara yote ya serikali nitaona imeweka advertisement kwa Nation Media, ujihesabu kwa nyumbani.
In his support for the financial bill, the Deputy President has said that through the government housing project, many job opportunities will be created which will provide income to the citizens.
Our members of the National Assembly very aggressively for 2 nights passed the finance bill to create a housing fund to construct 200,000 houses every year. Among those 200,000 houses, from this university, there will be architects, there will be quantity surveyors, there will be building engineers, there will be clerk of works, there will be electricians.
The Deputy President has also emphasized the need for tertiary institutions to embrace the new curriculum of education by changing the old system to meet the needs of the curriculum to increase skills for students, which will give them more employment opportunities.
Take for government-sponsored internships for first-hand skills to our graduates. Distinguished guests and graduates, this is one of the reasons that we are deploying resources to implementation of the competence-based curriculum for self-employability skills. In this regard, tertiary institutions must also adjust and adopt their model of education to not only meet the demands of the new system, but also support job creation market. Tertiary education can no longer be about graduating numbers or the prestige of their degrees, but the overall impact of their products.
As the days go by, the Kenyan press feels to be attacked by the government following various remarks by different leaders. However, the freedom of the press need not to be interfered by anyone, as stated in the Constitution. Jacob Okello, KUTV.
President William Ruto, on state visit in France, has today attended a joint press conference on the final day of New Global Financial Pact Summit, where they discussed on the ability of countries fighting poverty and climate change at once. The president also addressed the youth at Camp de Mars in Paris, France, where he also invited them to Africa Climate Summit, scheduled to take place on September 2023 in Nairobi. Lynette Maina reports.
During a joint press conference today at the conclusion of the new Global Financial Pact Summit, President William Ruto has claimed that an agreement has been reached on new global sources of financing for climate action in supporting vulnerable countries.
These are the benchmarks we have established for ourselves. They will serve us as a criteria against which we must assess our agreement. We have agreed that no country should be forced to choose between eradicating poverty and preserving the climate. We have agreed on some additional resources to support the vulnerable and the poorer countries. We have advanced discussion on reforming the governance of the multilateral development banks.
However, President Ruto argued that he would prefer to see a firm commitment to deploy a portion of the new official development assistance sought to provide greater fiscal space for heavily indebted countries by refinancing their maturing debts on more favorable and extended terms.
Many of our countries lack the necessary fiscal room to take on additional debt. And we are saying this as we discuss this new financing system. We value the incredible support by the multilateral development institutions, World Bank and IMF. We also have a wonderful relationship with China. They finance our infrastructure development. The tension between the West and China is unhelpful, is unnecessary, and is as useless as the tension between the North and South when we discuss climate change.
Speaking from the historical Eiffel Towers in Paris, President William Ruto earlier alone addressed the youth gathered at the Global Citizen Festival, where he advocated for the establishment of a global financial system that does not discriminate low-income countries and supports climate positivity.
At this global citizen event, we call for a global financial system that is fit for purpose, one that does not pit the West against the East, or the North against the South, or emitters against those who don't emit, or the developing against the developed. We want one that is fair, a financial system that is fair, that is transparent, and it is not too much to ask for a fair system.
The president extended an invitation to the Global Citizen Festival attendees, urging them to participate in the forthcoming September Africa Climate Summit, which is set to take place in Kenya.
See you in Nairobi in September. We will expect you in Nairobi on the 4th and 6th in September for the Africa Climate Summit, where finally we will have the final discourse on a new financial system and on a green, resilient growth.
The official visit of President Ruto in France has come at a time when the economy of the country is choking, Will the visit help find and restructure sustainable solution with the help of loan reliefs and subsidies from the developed world? Lynette Maina, KUTV.
Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has urged Kenyans to tighten their seat belts, signaling that the current economic crisis may go beyond the expected 6 months' time. Mudavadi has requested for more time for the government to overturn the economy. He spoke in the Entrepreneurs Forum organized by ACK St. Mark Church in Westlands.
Brace yourselves as these tough times will last. These are the sentiments of the government's third in command, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. According to Mudavadi, the global crisis rocking the world have overwhelmed the government's ability to reduce the cost of living. He attributes the deteriorating economy to the war in Ukraine and the skyrocketing interest rates imposed by powerful economies.
This is particularly critical at this time when we face many challenges, including a stagnant economy, negative impacts of the climate change, disruptions in the global supply chains, and lack of jobs for our young people that cumulatively result in high costs of living.
In canvassing for Kenyan support in the war against poverty, the Prime Cabinet Secretary came loaded with parables.
The economy is a big elephant. The way you start, don't despair, because the more of us work together, the more we scale this big economic hurdle that we have, and the more we shake it for the better and for the growth of the country.
He warned Kenyans to walk this journey with the government, conceding that the cross is too big for the government to carry.
When we thought the challenge is here, you will see that by last night, yesterday, both the United States and the Central Bank of England were raising interest rates to 5%, which is very high. So as much as we think we are just about to get out of the woods, the world economic situation is again taking a downturn.
It has been 283 days since the Kenya Kwanza regime took the realms of power. The pledge on September last year was a quick fix in 6 months' time. However, today the Prime Cabinet Secretary has asked Kenyans for more time, rubbishing any notion that the government can make the high cost of living go away in 6 months as promised.
That we are facing difficult times, but do not be cheated that we can get out of those difficult times in 6 months. I did say that we must brace ourselves for some hard times. It could take us up to 2.5 years to see the downturn.
These sentiments were made at the Entrepreneurship Conference organized by ACK St. Mark's in Westlands, Nairobi. Also in attendance was former Kitui Governor and Azimio Principal Charity Ngilu, who worked side by side with the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Munene Weru, KUTV.
From St. Mark's in Westlands to St. Mary's in Mukuru, Kwanjenga, Okoa Uchumi Organization has held a press conference to air its complaints over the 2023-2024 budget, the session that brought different partners. Now, Abraham Ochieng, who is the International Budget Partnership of the Kenya Program Officer in charge of the outreach and advocacy, has explained that the Okoa Uchumi Organization aims to ensure that every Kenyan involved in the budget-making process and that their wishes are prioritized. The organization has presented petitions to various parliamentary committees asking for the issues to be considered.
Budget making process as much as many people make it seem like it's a technical process, it's a process that anyone can engage. And we have seen it in practice through the work that we do. That budget making processes, it's a process that any citizen can engage as long as they have the right information, that is looking at the budget documents, and they know what to look out for. Because actually the Kenyans, they are the ones who know what it is that they need from the government to respond to. So it's for us, we see the citizens as a central part in this, and we work to ensure that every Kenyan is able to engage throughout the budget process.
Tu sijui tunaweza waitaje kwa sababu watakuja wa campaign, tutawapigia kura. Wakienda huko ndani unakuja unapata wanatugeuka. Mtu akienda huko ndani anafaa kurepresent sub county yake, afai kuenda pale anaangalia tumbo yake. But mostly tumekuja kuona wabunge wetu tukiendelea kuwabembeleza hivi watatutumia vibaya, kwa sababu mtu akiwa pale anaenda anaangalia tumbo yake, allowance zao wanataka wapandishe. Mtu kama mimi maybe nafanya kazi industrial area, napanda gari kila siku, ninaenda daily. Hakuna siku ule muhindi atakuja kunipatia transport allowance ama nipatie allowance yoyote.
All right, now we move to an interesting story of tonight where the ancient Vasco da Gama pillar has been refurbished by the government at a cost of 59 million shillings. The project, which is now complete in time for the upcoming tourism peak season, is expected to attract more tourists both locally and internationally. The monument has been restored with a seawall, modern pathways, toilets, facilities for people with disabilities, and beautification. Tourists are encouraged to visit the site for a serene experience.
The ancient Vasco da Gama pillar has gotten a major facelift after the government refurbished it at the cost of 59 million. The project is already complete as the high tourism season is expected to begin. In efforts to bring sanity to the operations at the ancient pillar, hawkers had been moved away from the site and a gate set up to ensure tourists enjoy their visit. A section of the hawkers, however, did get reprieve after the Malindi Member of Parliament, Amina Mnyazi, gave out portable stores to them to arrange outside the entrance for tourists to have ease to buy products.
At this moment, we are on ground with a team from the Government Service Delivery Unit to see if money invested by the government has indeed gone to the intended purpose. Yeah, the project costed 59 million. And it's not been simple work.
Dorcas Kamuye, the National Museum of Kenya curator in charge of Malindi, said that the government had invested heavily to restore the monument, including the seawall to prevent the monument from collapsing.
The traders have been sorted out already through efforts of multiple agencies within Malindi town, including the Office of the Member of Parliament, the area MCA, the Municipal Management Office, which actually plans the town and knows where they are.
Charity Mwende, a seller at the Vasco da Gama pillar, applauded the move, saying that they used to have challenges in their businesses as they did not have shelters until the Malindi MP, Amina Mnyazi, donated some portable stalls.
Toka tupate hizi vibanda, tumekuwa na shida sana ya mahali pa kuuzia vitu vyetu, na Amina Mnyazi akatusaidia na vibanda. Kwa saizi tuna furaha sababu tunapata kuhudumia wageni wetu vizuri kupitia kwa vibanda hizi tumesaidiwa nazo.
The pillar, which was once at the verge of collapsing, is now fully repaired with modern pathways set up, including modern toilets, facilities for people living with disabilities, and sitting areas to make the site more attractive. Yvonne Kemuma, KU TV.
All right, it is 18 minutes past the top of the hour. We take a short break right here on KUTV Primetime News. When we come back, we have much more in store for you, including a discussion that you had in the highlights of tonight, where we look at the pediatrics, the children and their health and their overall well-being. We'll be back in just but a bit. Don't go anywhere.
singeweza kusimama mbele yako.
What are some of the ways through which you can develop these skills so that you are comfortably fitting into the job?
You have to put yourself in positions where you are uncomfortable. Uncomfortable in the sense that you are not clear about what to do.
Because I used to work a corporate job before. So when I left, I happened to visit someone's farm around this area.
So this project is called Security Breach Detector 100 Canister Familiarize. It is meant to be used to detect, detonate explosive.
We'll tackle all the tough issues, discuss all the weird moments, and hopefully share a few laughs along the way.
A loving husband and father.
Nothing is too good for my daughter.
An ambitious businessman with a dark secret. A girl with a whole life in front of her, plunging into a marriage that she did not choose with the wrong man.
I'm not ready to marry Zima.
But who is the right one? I love Nambi. A rock star, living the dream.
But the babes keep chasing me, Agissa.
It ain't easy being famous. Especially with so many glamorous women around. A woman hell-bent on revenge.
He will pay.
Seductive, dangerous. She is a predator. Everybody needs it. Everybody wants it. They will do anything to get it. Love and wealth.
Welcome back and thank you for staying tuned to KUTV Primetime News. You can always find us on Facebook and YouTube at KUTV Kenya, and you can tweet us in case of feedback or any other kind of commentary that you have at KUTV_Kenya. Now, tonight our conversation revolves around the pediatrics branch of medicine. This is a branch that deals with children and their well-being. In particular concern is preparation for surgery and other medical procedures, and we'll even narrow down further to anesthesia. Joining me in this particular conversation are two pediatrics anesthesiologists. Pardon my pronunciation, Dr. Praxi Okutoi and Dr. ZP Gadhuya. Something to note also is that there are just a few pediatric anesthesiologists in the country. Karibuni sana madaktari wangu, if you can hear me. All right, let's begin with Dr. Praxi. Would you kindly tell us what you do in KNH as far as this practice is concerned? Dr. Praxi, if you may enable your microphone kindly. As we do that, let's talk to Dr. ZP. Kindly shed some light on what you do as well in this particular country as a private practitioner, and also what you do globally as far as this practice is concerned. Dr. ZP.
Very smaller to about 18 years. That is the scope of pediatric anesthesia. And one of the things that has happened is that This is a very new space in our setup, and I have also been involved in the setting up of the training program in this country and also out of this country. I serve on the Global Medical Advisory Board for Smile Train, a charity that deals with children's surgery, mainly for cleft. But I've also served as the Secretary for Global Initiative for Children's Surgery. This is a group of people who came together to see how surgery and anesthesia can be made safer and more accessible for children in the world globally, because so many children lack access to safe anesthesia and surgery.
Amazing. That is an amazing profile, Dr. Zippy. Now let's move over to Dr. Praxi. If you can hear me now, let's get to hear what you do at KNH and other spheres.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, so thank you for having me on the call. My name is Dr. Praxi Okutoi, as you clearly said. I'm a pediatric anesthesiologist at Kenyatta National Hospital, where I have worked for about 15 years now. I deal with anesthesia for children. This is a very specialized area of anesthesia because we facilitate for the safe surgery of children beginning from the neonatal age, which means less than 28 days, all the way to 14 years of age.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Praxi. You've actually answered my next question that I had for you. So I'm going to go straight to Dr. Zippy, and let's talk about this particular anesthesia, an anesthesiology that you perform as doctors in that particular regard. What's really the demarcation between anesthesia for adults and pediatric anesthesia that involves children, definitely? Dr. if you can hear me? Dr. Zippy? If you can...
So we deal with children from when they are born, whether they are born before they are due date, or whether they are born when they are term, which is to say that they have reached the time for them to be delivered. And then we deal with them up to the age of 14. In some countries, the demarcation goes on up to 18 years, and there are some children with special problems that require constant treatment, and some of these are allowed up to the age of about 21 years. And what we say in the practice of anesthesia is that children are not small adults. They actually require very specialized skill to give them safe anesthesia where they can come out.
All right, I think we're having a few issues with your sound. I don't know if you had finished by your particular point, but I'm going to go to Dr. Praxi, and with a question of that comes from a research that we have done recently, where as far as pediatric anesthesiologists are concerned, there are few in numbers, and the cry is that we need to have more of this in our hospitals. What are the benefits of having this particular doctors who specialize in anesthesiologists for children in that particular regard?
As I've said before, the pediatric population is has unique properties, unique physiological properties as compared to the adult population. And given this uniqueness, there is extra skill that is required in the provision for anesthesia for these children so that the surgical outcomes can be good. Therefore, this is the reason why in the training of anesthesia, there is extra training that is accorded to a person or a clinician or an anesthetist
who wants to be a pediatric anesthetist after 4 years of a master's degree, they do another year or two purely in pediatric anesthesia to acquire more skills so that they are able to deal with this unique population of persons.
All right. I'm going to now come to Dr. Zippy, if you can hear me. We have a few of these particular doctors who are few in the country. What is your take on what should happen in hospitals to make sure that this we have at least more doctors on that specialization?
Thank you very much. One of the things that is of great note in our country is that we actually biggest number of pediatric anesthesiologists on the continent. And the story, as we said, is the story of how we started training our own people to become pediatric anesthesiologists. The population of Kenya, just like in many other countries in our region, is almost half pediatric. So 50% of the population in this country is pediatric. So we actually require people extra who can take care of these children, especially the very young and the very sick. What we have noted is that the likelihood of dying for a child who is given anesthesia in our part of the world is up to almost 100 times higher than the same procedure being done in the West. And of course, we know that even in our country, the discrepancy is a lot if you compare what is happening in the urban areas and what is happening in the rural areas. Death rate, the number of children who are dying because they cannot access somebody to give them anesthesia at that level is very high. So we are training people locally, so that is why we're increasing our numbers, but we are also having skills imparted on other people who are training in their masters in anesthesia, and also people who are doing their nursing and clinical official anesthesia. Their skills in taking care of children is our mandate to increase their skill and knowledge to run even where there are no pediatric anesthesiologists, because indeed we are very few, that the people taking care of them can give them better quality care.
Just a quick question that comes to mind at this particular time, even as I move over to Dr. Praxi. Dr. Zippy, you're also free to answer after she has answered. In this particular practice, are there any specific methods that are just specific to children and that cannot work for adults? And how do you, and as you answer that question, how do you prepare kids who are more vulnerable in this particular case? How do you prepare them for this particular procedure, especially when they're about to have a procedure like surgery?
Is that to me?
Yes, we begin with you.
Okay, so you asked whether there's something that we do for children that we don't do for adults.
Yes.
We are very specific in giving anesthetics to children, and because we cannot generalize, children being a special population, we cannot generalize the anesthesia. For example, a child who is a preterm, meaning the one born before date, to the one who is 14 years. Yet that whole spectrum still falls under pediatric anesthesia. And so we have to be very specific. And so there are guidelines that we use to administer anesthesia to these children. In adults, you may actually have some generalizations, but in children, because at different ages, there are different levels of development, we have to have specifics, even in terms of how much drug is given, how much volume of fluids is given, how much blood is given if it is required. So that actually forms the basis of the difference, because as they develop, their physiological features to actually transform from that neonatal phase into the adult phase. Then, what was the other question?
I think you've already answered the question. Basically, what exactly do you do different? Maybe a question that you can answer before we move to the next question would be, what?
Can I add something?
All right.
Before we move on?
All right. Go ahead.
So one of the things we teach and tell our fellows and all everybody giving anesthesia is that children are not small adults. For adults, in many cases, one size fits all, but for children, the spectrum is very hard. You have to think, like Dr. Okuso says, from the very smallest to bigger children. But I think one of the major differences in pediatric anesthesia is that you have to deal a lot with the parents and the grandparents in our Asian era. And sometimes you really need extra attention to detail, because sometimes the child is not able to say what they are feeling or what they are seeing. You have to prepare them in terms of, for the types of children, about how to separate them from their parents. So in the practice of pediatric anesthesia, we actually have another category of clients who are the parents and the caregivers. And the what we call informed consent of surgery. Sometimes we are explaining to the person who is not the patient that we're going to take care of. So that is very different from the scope of practice in adult anesthesia, where you actually have a conversation with the person who is, if they're able to, who is having the surgery, and they can ask questions. Here you're dealing a lot with that parties, the parents and the other caregivers.
All right, thank you very much for that particular input, my doctors. Now, I'll move to the next question that I would really also want input from the both of you, but I'm going to start with Dr. Praxi. When it comes to these particular procedures, just like any other medical procedure for any particular patient, there are risks that are involved. What are the dangers or risks that are very common and prevalent in this particular, when we are handling children, and what are the measures that you take to ensure that you can avert some of the unfortunate events that would happen as a result of a procedure?
Yeah, well, indeed, there are some risks. However, from the outset, let me just say that the anesthetic space at the moment has undergone a lot of development, and it is as safe as it can be. However, the risks can be patient-based or equipment-based, or also maybe drug-based, because we also use drugs for administering anesthesia. That is why we detail the history that we take, the information that we get from the parent and from the clinical examination that we subject the patient to before they undergo an anesthetic. We have a system evaluation where we pick out anything that is likely to put the patient at risk. We also look at our equipment and make sure that the equipment is safe enough for the patient to be used on the patient for administration of the anesthetic. The drugs that we use are drugs that have been studied and have been deemed safe for patient use. However, there may be circumstances where a patient may react to a drug. Sometimes it is not possible. A lot of the times we may not know whether this was going to be the case or not. And in an unfortunate incident that this happens, then we just document so that there's reference that can be made in the future should this patient need to undergo another anesthetic. So we have a sort of checklist that involves checking out the patient and make sure the patient is fit for anesthesia, checking the equipment, and also making sure that we're using the right drugs in the right dosages. So in a nutshell, yes, sometimes we encounter bad outcomes, but suffice to say that the anesthetic space now has been made as safe as it can be. We normally use the analogy of flying. I mean, it's not every day that you hear of a plane crash, but indeed, sometimes and very occasionally, you encounter such.
Very, very well put, with an analogy to support that particular evidence in that regard. Now, let's move over to Dr. Zippy. Maybe an addition towards that.
Okay, one of the things that is very common with children is that children under one is a very young, have very low reserve. So the anesthetic needs to be metered so that you don't lose the time of giving them oxygen, which is a big thing. And then this, we have improved a lot in the field of monitoring. Unfortunately, there are still some parts of this country where they don't have as advanced monitoring as is available, like in Nairobi or in the West. But monitoring has been in making sure that everything is going right. The other thing that is very common for children is they can vomit. So we always say in anesthesia that the only person other than your mother who cares whether you've eaten or not is the anesthetist. Because if you vomit on the table, then you're not able to control your air, and you choke, and you end up in ICU or even dead. So this is why we always say before you come for surgery, you need not to have eaten for a specific time, and there are guidelines about that unless it's an emergency. So those are some of the complications. And then the other thing is about pain. The surgery always comes with pain. Sometimes pain, if it's not well managed, especially for the children, may have long-lasting effects on them then into their adulthood. So like Dr. Ashley says, anesthesia has become fairly safe, but we still have a long way to go. This is why we are training people, because one of the other things is just about the skills that people have to giving this anesthesia. How well are they able to respond when there's an incident that is happening? How well are they able to respond and about crisis? So we still have a long way to go in terms of teaching, improving knowledge and skills, but we are in this space and we are going to make anesthesia safe for all the children in Kenya.
All right, thank you so much. And even Dr. Zippy, before I let you go, as you wind this particular conversation, tell us, if one wants to become like you, what happens to them?
That's a very interesting question, but you have to finish your high school, of course, go into medical school, however long time that takes. Then go back to the university and do a master's program in anesthesia, which takes about 4 to 5 years. And then you come out and work for about 2 years. You get your specialist recognition.
All right.
That means that the medical board recognizes that you are qualified to give anesthesia, and then you go back to school for about a year or more to learn now how to give that anesthesia specifically to children. So it's a long journey, but it's doable and it's enjoyable.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Praxi, as we wind this particular conversation, your parting shot, and as you tell us your parting shot in the next 30 seconds or so, what's the future? How do you envision the future of pediatric anesthesiology?
In the next this will happen on the 30th of June, which is Friday next week. We are doing this with a focus of improving anesthesia in this country. We believe that once we launch, we will be able to champion for the safe anesthesia delivery for the children of Kenya. We'll be able to partner and collaborate with other like-minded people, institutions, the government of Kenya, other global partners, just to make sure that we expand this space. We would also like to increase the numbers so that we're not just the few of us that we are. So with the launch that is coming up, we are very upbeat and are very positive that the future is going to be bright. So we welcome other people. We welcome everybody to join us in celebrating this milestone. Indeed, our society is going to be the only one of its kind in the region, in the East African region. So we are looking forward to celebrating this milestone.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And you'll be sure and cover and be part of that particular event. Thank you so much, my doctors, actually my pediatrics anesthesiologists. Finally, I made it to pronounce. And Dr. Gaduya and Dr. Praxi are joining us in this particular conversation tonight. All right, welcome back. Let's continue with the news bulletins. And now a petitioner has moved to court challenging the tenure of the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, KERA, chairperson Professor Oyuko Mbeche. In the certifications court, Mureithi claims that Mbeche is in office illegally as his two-term period expired last year. Mureithi argues that the tenure of the members and chairpersons of all the boards shall not exceed a cumulative term of 6 years or 2 terms of 3 years each, and claims Mbeche is serving his 7th year at the KERA board. Mureithi says Mbeche ought to have vacated office on or before October 2nd, 2022 at Section 12 of the Kenya Road.
The county government
And the county government of Embu has kick-started a series of training to
The county government of Embu has initiated training for farmers on ways of reducing harvest losses incurred by horticultural farmers. The county executive member John Ndwiga stated that the training will equip farmers with skills and knowledge regarding storage of harvest. Ndwiga stated that the vegetables and tomatoes were the most affected, with an estimated loss of up to 80%.
And what we want to do is to ensure that our farmers are able to get money, get profit, and also have safe food, adequate food. In other words, we want our farmers to have good profits for whatever produce they are doing in their farms, in terms of horticulture, and also be able to be food secure. In terms of the reason, the main reason why we came up with this partnership is because we realized that horticulture farming is facing very many challenges, especially when it comes to marketing. So what this project this partnership is handling is, apart from training our farmers on horticulture crops production, it is also handling the challenge of marketing.
He further noted that in a joint partnership with the national government, an aggregation center worth 500 million shillings will be put up in Machaga area in Mbeere sub-county. It will be used to assist farmers to preserve their harvest for longer. The CEC also said the center will be used to do value addition to increase earnings, and that the buyers will also be able to access the produce in bulk from the aggregation centers.
And as we train our farmers how to do the marketing bit, Embu County government is also has also initiated another project on KAIP, County Aggregation and Industrial Park, which we are doing in partnership with the national government. And what that aggregation park will do is that it will assist these horticulture farmers be able to aggregate their produce within the aggregation center, and therefore the people who come to buy can buy in volumes in one place. Number two, it will also reduce the challenge of losses that farmers are suffering, because now it will be easier for the market to get produce.
Farmers in Embu have for long failed to benefit from their farms due to losses they face after harvesting. Mugoka Rugoti, a farmer in Kagari South Ward in Embu East Sub-County, recounted how his farm has not been beneficial to him. Another farmer, Jeremiah Kivuti, urged the government to look for enough market for their produce before installing the aggregation centers.
Ule wakati tulivuna maembe, mimi mwenyewe nilipoteza kiwango cha kama robo ya mazao yote ambayo tulivuna, na ni kwa sababu hatukuweza kuweka vizuri, hatukuweza kupulizia ndawa vizuri, kwa hivyo tukapata kidogo.
CEC John Ndwiga said that the aggregation center will go a long way in helping the farmers by reducing losses to their products. Yvonne Kemuma, KU TV.
Thank you so much, Yvonne Kemuma, for that wonderful report. Now, in other news, two suspects, Ali Omar Haji Said and Alfani Mwinyi, have been sentenced for 8 years in prison for possessing and dealing in wildlife trophies without permit. They were found guilty by the Mombasa Chief Magistrate Martha Tutu. The suspects were arrested with a rhino horn weighing 1.406 kg and valued at 3 million Kenya shillings.
Two suspects found in possession of wildlife trophies without permit have been jailed 8 years. The two, Ali Omar Haji and Alfani Mwinyi, were found guilty by the Mombasa Chief Magistrate Martha Mutu. According to a charge sheet, the suspects were arrested and found in possession of a wildlife trophy, one rhino horn weighing 1.406 kgs with a street value of 3 million. During the defense hearing, they admitted that they were arrested while taking ivory to a witch doctor for cleansing. One of the suspects stated that he was a foreman at a construction site in Mombasa Old Town. According to him, his workmates informed him that they had found a horn wrapped in a red cloth. He mentioned that they were apprehended while they were transporting the ivory to a traditional healer for purification. Their belief was that their construction site had been affected by malicious sorcery, which led them to seek cleansing rituals. While delivering her ruling, Mombasa Chief Magistrate Martha Mutuku dismissed the suspect's claim of witchcraft. According to the prosecution, it has been established that the two individuals were actively engaged in a plan to sell the ivory. The evidence presented demonstrates that the two were involved in negotiations for payment, indicating their intent to carry out the transaction. Yvonne Kemuma, KU TV.
And now with another story from Yvonne Kemuma, we take a short break right here on KU TV Primetime News. When we come back with sports news.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto